At every moment of our lives, we face choices that can transform our destiny. From the smallest decisions to the great turning points of existence, each choice carries immense power. But what if there was a guide, an unfailing principle that allowed us to always choose in harmony with divine wisdom? This text, inspired by the teachings of Joseph Murphy, reveals the formula for perfect decisions, the way to align our conscious mind with the infinite intelligence of God. Here you will discover how to make decisions with absolute clarity, free from doubt, fear, or hesitation, acting from a place of deep faith and trust in the universal flow. Each word is a key that opens the door to certainty and vision, each teaching a beacon that lights the path of the right choice. You will learn to listen to the inner guidance that has always been there, waiting to be recognized, and to trust that every decision made from this divine connection leads to prosperity, peace, and fulfillment. Prepare for a journey where the human mind and divine intelligence meet, where choosing becomes an art, and every decision a sure step toward your highest destiny. Every true decision is an affirmation of faith, not the abstract faith of religious speeches, nor the faith conditioned by visible outcomes, but operative faith, that silent certainty that springs from the soul when it has been aligned with its deepest center. Choosing is not simply a matter of picking between two paths. Choosing is sealing an inner direction with the power of your word, your intention, and your feeling. And this act, when carried out in spiritual order, unleashes invisible forces that respond with mathematical precision. The perfect decision is not the product of luck, endless analysis, or someone else's advice. It is not the most comfortable or the fastest. It is the one that harmonizes with your inner wisdom, the immutable principle that dwells within you, that knows the way even when you cannot yet see the path. Deciding without hesitation, anxiety, or later regret is possible when one learns to consult that wisdom in stillness, to listen to peace as the guiding criterion, and to act with firmness once direction has been received. This work is born with a single purpose: to install within you a daily, precise, and reliable method that turns your decisions into coherent expressions of good. Not a rigid system, but an organic sequence supported by 5 pillars. Declare surrender. Let the wisdom within me choose now. Enter into silence. Consult the inner room without pressure or judgment. Assume the end fulfilled. Visualize the result already manifested with peace. Sleep with a request. Ask for a clear sign without demanding form or timing. Receive the first indication upon waking. Record whatever arises without filter. The central criterion that accompanies this formula is peace. Not just any peace, but the kind that descends like a gentle oil over the mind when the decision is right. A peace that requires no proof, needs no applause, that simply is. And if the idea brings tranquility, builds your environment and blesses all involved, then you may move forward without fear. You have been guided by the Spirit. Installing this method requires no special conditions, only a sincere willingness to listen to the higher within you, because choosing well is not a privilege of a few, it is a law for those who decide from the soul. The formula for perfect decisions, based on the teachings of Joseph Murphy. We have noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to keep creating more and better content. Are you ready to change your life? Chapter 1. The Law of the Subconscious in Choice. Every choice is a sowing, and every sowing inevitably yields its harvest. This law is as certain as the law of gravity and admits no exception. What you plant in your subconscious mind, you will reap in your external experience. There is no such thing as a neutral decision. Every choice you make, even seemingly trivial, carries creative energy, for every idea accepted by your subconscious becomes form, function, or circumstance. Now, the great error of modern man is not so much choosing wrongly, but choosing doubly, that is, planting 2 opposing ideas simultaneously. It is the drama of the divided mind, of one who desires prosperity but imagines loss, prays for health but fears disease, asks for guidance but insists on deciding alone. The Apostle James expresses it thus: "A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways." James 1:8. This instability is not divine punishment, but a mental law. Your subconscious cannot execute 2 opposing commands at the same time. Therefore, It is necessary to learn to choose from inner unity. And that unity is not the fruit of discursive reason, but of the deep agreement between desire, imagination, and feeling. Deciding is not a logical act, it is a spiritual act. A true decision does not arise from compulsion or haste, but from the inner certainty that flows when desire has been made flesh in imagination and sealed with the corresponding emotion. Faith is nothing other than this, a vividly imagined desire, serenely felt as real. What happens when you decide without that inner unity? You wear yourself out, scatter your energies, and send confusing orders to your subconscious. Imagine entering a carpentry workshop and shouting, "Make me a chair. No, wait, a table. No, a ladder." No matter how skilled the carpenter, he will freeze. Your subconscious is the carpenter, and your command, the clear, felt, and persistent idea, is the blueprint you provide. Without a firm blueprint, no work is possible. That is why you must learn to unify your decision on 3 levels: what you consciously desire, what you vividly imagine, and what you feel as already fulfilled. This is called a dominant impression, and it is the only one the subconscious executes. Wanting something is not enough. You must imagine it in detail, feel it with peace, and hold it without contradiction. This is the fundamental principle of the new thought, illustrated by Trower. Creative thought is the mold, feeling is the substance, the result is the manifested form. But there is more. Every authentic decision emanates from a higher source within you. You do not decide from your small self. The wisdom that dwells deep inside decides when you make space for it. Making space means renouncing force, fear, and obsessive calculation. It is surrendering to the perfect order that already exists on the invisible plane, awaiting translation into tangible forms through your serene acceptance. Therefore, before deciding, pause and declare sincerely, "I let the wisdom within me choose now." This phrase, spoken with conviction, followed by silence, opens the door to inner guidance. You may ask, how do I know this inner voice is correct and not a mere disguised whim? The answer is simple and certain. The true criterion is peace. Every decision that springs from inner wisdom produces an unmistakable sense of rest. Not euphoria, excitement, or urgency. Peace. A peace that does not depend on circumstances, needs no external approval, and remains unshaken by doubt. Proverbs 3:5-6 expresses it beautifully. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight." Translated into the language of mental law. Let the principle of wisdom, which is God within you, act as your compass. Do not rely solely on your calculations. Surrender your inner path and see your steps corrected. Here is a technique that has borne fruit for hundreds of my listeners over the years. When you must make an important decision, do not rush it. Do not resolve it at the table of logic, but in the temple of the subconscious. Go into silence, sit quietly and softly declare, "My mind is fixed on good. The wisdom within me decides with perfect order." Then briefly visualize the final scene. You, at peace with the result already resolved, smiling with relief. Feel that image. Do not cling to it, release it. Repeat the affirmation before sleep. The next morning, observe if there is peace in your soul, if you feel clarity without tension, if an idea comes gently and convincingly. That is the answer. Choice should not produce knots in your stomach or shadows in your spirit. The subconscious does not respond to fear, only to a clear image held in trust. Therefore, if you still feel fear, do not decide yet. First, purify your inner field. Replace each fearful thought with its positive equivalent. If you fear loss, affirm, "The provision of the infinite flows toward me in perfect order." If you fear error, say, "The internal wisdom does not fail. It guides me in all things." Every fearful thought is an abortive seed. Do not plant what you will later regret. The mind is fertile soil but does not distinguish between good and bad seeds. Cultivate only the images you wish to see grow. Constant repetition of affirmations consistent with your ideal transforms your inner terrain. This is the most effective way to establish the dominant impression. Affirming is not mechanical repetition. It is nourishing a mental pattern with feeling until it becomes flesh. That is experience. I have seen cases where this technique transformed lives. I remember a man who had to choose between two jobs. One offered more money but less peace. The other offered less income but a harmonious environment. I told him, "Do not decide yet. Go into silence each night." And he repeated, "I let the wisdom within me choose now. My decision is sealed in peace. Visualize only the final scene. You serene, prospering with joy." After 3 days, the more peaceful job unexpectedly offered a salary increase. His subconscious had resolved it better than his logic. This is how the law operates. Do not choose from anxiety. Do not choose by comparison. Decide from peace. And if there is no peace, there is no decision. Wait, pray, visualize, feel, give thanks in advance. And when peace visits you like a silent cloak, you will know you have chosen well even if you do not understand all the details. Remember this, your subconscious does not fail, but you must speak to it in its language, image, emotion, repetition, and certainty. Sow with faith, water with gratitude, and harvest with joy. This is how the laws of the Spirit operate. This is how true choice is born. Chapter 2. The criterion of peace, the inner arbiter. Every authentic decision is recognized not by the noise it makes, but by the peace it leaves behind. This is a universal law, and those who learn to obey it are spared life's most costly mistakes. There is no compass more reliable than peace. Not just any peace, not the silence that follows resignation, nor the feigned calm of self-deception, but the peace that surpasses all understanding. Philippians 4:7. This inner stillness does not depend on circumstances, cannot be explained by human reasoning, yet asserts itself with the force of intimate evidence. I have met hundreds of people confused, divided, entangled in choices where logic told them one thing and the heart another. And I have always told them the same. Do not follow the loudest voice, follow the most peaceful one. Wisdom does not shout, pressure, or threaten. Wisdom whispers, and its language is serenity. This is why St. Paul in his letter to the Colossians says, "Let the peace of God rule in your hearts." Colossians 3:15. In the original Greek, the verb rule is brabeo, which means to act as an arbiter, like a sports judge. Peace is therefore an arbiter. It decides whether a move is valid or not. And when an idea, however attractive it seems, does not produce peace, that inner arbiter is telling us the move is invalid. But how do you distinguish true peace from the superficial relief of the ego? This is a crucial question. The ego also knows how to calm itself temporarily, sometimes merely avoiding confrontation, postponing a decision, or gratifying an impulse produces a fleeting relief that many confuse with peace. But that relief is like a painkiller. It masks the symptom, but does not cure the cause. Authentic peace, on the other hand, settles and remains. It does not need defending, nor is it disturbed by circumstances. It does not depend on others agreeing, nor on your expectations being met. It is a state of being, not a transient emotion. And this state has clear, perceptible, even physical signals. First, the breath. When a decision is correct, your breathing becomes deep, fluid, and spontaneous. You do not need to force the air. You feel as if you are breathing with your whole body. Your chest expands effortlessly, and a sense of lightness arises. It is as if the air itself confirms. You are in the right. Conversely, if the chosen idea is self-deception or evasion, the breath becomes shallow, choppy, anxious. There is a tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, a restlessness that the mind tries to deny, but the body cannot hide. Second, the general serenity of the nervous system. Wise decisions do not accelerate, agitate, or compel immediate action. Hurry is a sign of fear, not certainty. When you decide from peace, your enteric nervous system, your second brain in the abdomen, responds with a sense of order, as if the pieces fit together. Muscle tension dissolves and the mind regains clarity. Third, mental clarity, not the same as intellectual calculation. It is a clarity that requires no excessive thinking. It is not based on pros and cons lists, but on a certainty imposed by internal evidence, like finding a key that fits a lock and hearing the click. No further discussion is needed. You know it is right. This is how inner wisdom confirms its direction. To train this perception, I offer a practical method, the 24-hour test. When an idea seems correct, do not decide immediately. Stay with it for a full day. Do not argue, do not rationalize, simply observe. Ask yourself at intervals, does this idea give me peace or does it disturb me? If over the 24 hours peace grows rather than diminishes, if recalling it brings more serenity, if your body responds with rest, then that is the correct direction. But if peace decreases, doubts grow, new restlessness arises, then that was not the valid move. It is that simple. A young entrepreneur came to me with a dilemma. He had received 2 offers to expand his business. One offered higher immediate profitability, the other a partnership with someone of solid values but without capital. His rational mind leaned toward the first, but something inside troubled him. I told him, do the 24-hour test. Stay with each idea for a full day. Observe your body, your breath, your peace. On the second day, he returned and said, I slept better imagining the second option. With the first, I had insomnia and tension. I replied, peace has already decided for you. This is not magic, it is law. Peace is the infallible signal of the correct action on the plane of the soul. As Psalm 23 powerfully affirms, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He restores my soul. This is not a poetic promise. It is an exact description of what occurs when inner wisdom guides your decisions. You feel rest, your soul is restored, and you walk paths of righteousness without the need for external approval. To use this criterion effectively, train yourself in daily practice of silence and conscious breathing at least 3 times a day. Pause and sit in silence for a few minutes. Breathe slowly and deeply without forcing it. On each exhale, repeat mentally, the peace of God rules my decisions. Observe without judgment which ideas arise in your consciousness. Keep this practice consistently, and you will see your sensitivity to peace sharpen. It is like calibrating a musical instrument. At first, it seems imprecise, but with practice, your entire soul becomes a receiving antenna for truth and a necessary warning. Do not confuse peace with conformity. Some claim peace only because they avoid conflict, have given up desire, or have resigned themselves. That is not peace, that is numbness. True peace is not the absence of movement, but the presence of direction. It is not passivity, but serene firmness. Spiritual peace propels, it does not paralyze. If your decision brings peace and at the same time energy to act, serene enthusiasm to move forward, clarity without force, then you know you have heard the inner voice correctly. Peace is, ultimately, the arbiter God placed in your soul so you never lose your way. Listen to it, respect it, follow it, and each of your decisions will become an extension of eternal wisdom. Chapter 3, Consulting in Silence, Entering the Inner Room. There is no source of guidance more reliable than that which springs from silence. Not external silence, the mere absence of noise, but inner silence, the vibrant stillness in which your soul hears God. Deciding with wisdom is not an intellectual act, nor an emotional one, nor even merely a moral one. It is an act of communion. That is why every true decision must be born in the inner room. It is an invisible space where your spirit comes into contact with infinite wisdom. The Master expressed it with absolute clarity in the Gospel. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6:6. This is not decorative instruction or pious advice. It is an exact formula, a precise technique to access the creative reservoir of the subconscious and receive guidance that never fails. The first thing you must understand is that this inner room is not a physical place, but a state of consciousness. You do not need a temple, a church, or a sacred object. What you need is to interrupt the torrent of stimuli overwhelming your surface mind and withdraw for a few moments to the level where all is calm. This retreat does not require hours, only minutes. It does not require rituals, only firm intention. With 3 sessions of 3 to 5 minutes a day, one in the morning, one at midday, and one before sleep, you can radically transform your spiritual sensitivity. The secret is not in duration, but in the quality of the inward focus. The method is simple but requires consistency. Sit in a quiet place with your back straight but without tension. Close your eyes gently. Declare inwardly, I now enter my inner room, all is silent, wisdom guides me. Mentally place the council chair. Visualize an empty chair before you. Imagine infinite wisdom seated there. Do not give it human form. Do not force it. Simply feel its presence, alive, intelligent, benevolent. Repeat the seed word, wisdom, mentally. Do not analyze it. Let it float in your mind like a leaf on water. Each time your attention drifts, gently return to the word. Let this word caress the surface of your mind. Maintain silence. Do not ask, do not question. Simply remain receptive. If images, thoughts, or emotions arise, observe them without attachment. Return to the word wisdom. After 3 to 5 minutes, conclude with an affirmation, in silence and trust is my strength. Thank you for guiding me. Practice 3 times a day. This exercise gradually plants a channel of communication between your conscious mind and your inner guide. At first, it may seem as if nothing is happening, but over time, and not much, you will begin to notice subtle yet profound changes. Greater clarity, less anxiety, sudden intuitions, meaningful coincidences, unexpected answers in daily life. This is how the inner voice operates, for it rarely comes as a clamor or spectacle. It comes as described in 1 Kings 19:12, when Elijah, fleeing to the mountain, did not find God in the strong wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in a gentle, delicate whisper. That is the infallible sign of God's voice. Its tone is soft, but its effect is precise. It does not impose, but it convinces. It needs no proof, because it already contains truth. The beauty of this guidance is that it is not limited to life's great decisions. It also acts in small matters: which path to take, which word to speak, when to talk and when to be silent, which call to answer and which to let pass. The wisdom within you never rests. It is ready to instruct you at every moment, but it needs your availability. A testimony illustrates this. A single mother, overwhelmed with daily decisions, began practicing this method 3 times a day. She had no time for long retreats, but she could manage 3 5-minute spaces before waking her children, before lunch, and just before sleep. Within a few days, she wrote to me, "Decisions that used to exhaust me now resolve almost on their own. Answers come as gentle intuitions, and the most incredible thing is that my body feels more relaxed. I sleep better, and my children have stopped arguing." It is not magic. It is law. You have entered the inner room and consulted the source. Some say, "I've tried entering silence, but my mind fills with noise." To them I say, do not fight the noise. Observe it as one watches clouds pass without trying to grasp them. Each time you do this, you train your mind to still itself. The subconscious responds not to effort, but to consistent, tension-free practice. The key is always returning to the exercise without judgment, without anxious expectation. Just as the sediment in still water settles on its own, so your mind clears with faithful inward focus. Another useful resource is to write down any doubt or dilemma before entering. Place it on a sheet, as if delivering it to an invisible counselor. Then perform the exercise as described and allow the answer to come when it will. Sometimes it arrives during silence, sometimes later in thought, phrase, conversation, or dream. What matters is knowing that the surrender has been made and your subconscious has received the directive. Remember, silence is not emptiness. It is presence. It is not passivity. It is preparation. In the world of causes, inward focus is the most powerful tool. It is where the seeds of truth are sown and germinate. If you make this practice a habit 3 times a day, I assure you, with years of experience, that you will never again decide from confusion, for you will have established in your mind the habit of higher counsel. A mind that consults wisdom cannot err. Even if it stumbles, it corrects itself. Even if it doubts, it returns to peace. Even if it fails, it learns and rises. In silence and trust is my strength. Isaiah 30:15. Embed this truth within you. Repeat this declaration as a formula of power, and when the next decision comes, do not rush. Enter the inner room, rest, consult, and wait for the sign. For every soul that asks in faith receives, and every soul that listens in silence hears the voice that never fails. Chapter 4. Ask and let go, the law of reverse effort. There comes a moment in the process of every decision when the soul must let go, not out of resignation, but out of trust. not out of weakness, but out of spiritual maturity. Just as a seed does not germinate when the farmer digs it up every hour to check if it has started to grow, so an inner request bears no fruit when it is impatient, tense, or anxious. Every true choice, once correctly planted in the subconscious mind, must be released with gratitude. This is the law of reverse effort. The more you try to force a response from the surface mind, the more you block it. The harder you push the door with fear, the more it resists. The solution, as we shall see, is not to intensify the desire, but to yield to the higher intelligence that has already received your directive. Jesus expressed this with majestic clarity. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Mark 11:24. He did not say struggle to receive it or worry to make it happen, but rather believe that you have already received it. That is, consider resolved what you have delivered correctly. And if you have done it with faith, then all that remains is gratitude. For anticipatory gratitude is the unmistakable sign that the soul has let go, and only when you let go do you receive. The surface mind, trained in the logic of constant effort, finds this principle paradoxical. It has been programmed to believe that all results depend on control, meticulous analysis, and constant vigilance. When facing an important decision, it responds with tension, wanting to resolve it immediately. It fears error. It repeats the mental question over and over, seeking instant certainty. But this kind of mental effort blocks the answer because what it emits is not faith, but anxiety. And the subconscious does not respond to anxiety, but to the clear, felt image that is then released. Émile Coué, the famous French psychologist, formulated this law with scientific precision. When will and imagination are in conflict, imagination always wins. In other words, if you consciously say, I want to decide correctly, but at the same time imagine failure or loss, your imagination will defeat your intention, and the more you strive with willpower, the stronger the opposing image becomes. Coué called this the law of reverse effort, and his solution was simple. Do not struggle with the mind. Redirect your imagination and let the subconscious do its work. Let us consider a clinical example. A woman came to me in deep anguish. She had to choose between moving to another city for a job offer or staying close to her family. She had prayed, visualized, made lists, but each attempt left her more tense. She said, I feel that the more I try to decide, the less clarity I have. I replied, because you are trapped in reverse effort. Your will wants to decide, but your imagination keeps sending images of doubt, loss, and fear. You must change strategy. Ask once, then let go. Visualize peace, not the path, and give thanks as if it has already been resolved. I gave her a prayer formula that has transformed thousands of lives. Thank you, for this choice is resolved in divine and perfect order. I asked her to repeat it before sleep, without seeking results, resting the mind as one rests the body after sowing a seed. Within a week, she wrote to me, one morning I woke with a clear image in my mind, me smiling in my new city. There was no fear, only peace. That same afternoon, the company unexpectedly adjusted their proposal, resolving the details that had troubled me. I no longer doubted. What had happened? She had let go of effort and the answer emerged. This is crucial. Mature decisions are not forced. Just as a fruit does not ripen by being pulled from the tree, but in its own time, every inner response needs rest, space, and trust. The subconscious operates like an invisible laboratory. If you introduce the image of the desired outcome, seal it with emotion, and then give thanks, you have done what is necessary. If instead you repeat doubt, modify the image each day, consult everyone and interrupt the process, a constantly interfering mind prevents the inner laboratory from working. That is why, once you have consulted in silence, as taught in the previous chapter, and have received an initial impression, do not stir the water again. Affirm with gratitude. Rest in the wisdom that already knows, and practice this sequence. Declare with faith, I let the wisdom within me choose now. Briefly visualize the final result, you at peace, blessed, in order. Feel gratitude as if it were already resolved. Repeat serenely, thank you, for this choice is resolved in divine and perfect order. Let go. Occupy yourself with other matters. Do not review the request. Do not seek constant signs. The answer will come when you are in the proper frequency to receive it. It is vital to note, the answer does not always come as a voice or magical sign. Sometimes you simply notice that anxiety has vanished, that one option no longer appeals, or that someone mentions something confirming what you already intuited. God does not shout. God whispers. The wisdom within you does not need to astonish you. It only needs you to be silent and grateful to hear it. One last tip. Avoid sharing your decision in process with too many people. Every external opinion is a new impression that can disturb your inner climate. Share only with those who can pray with you in the same direction without interference. A doubting collective mind contaminates, but a mind that affirms with you amplifies. This is the law. In summary, do not force, do not overanalyze, do not demand noisy signs. Decide to trust. The act of letting go is not abandonment, it is the highest form of action. You have done your part by sowing, and now you let the creative principle within you do its work, and that principle never fails. Chapter 5. The Mental Movie of the Fulfilled End. Decisions are not made by means, they are made by the end. At first glance, this statement may seem paradoxical or even impractical, yet it contains one of the most powerful principles of new thought. True choice is not based on analyzing intermediate steps, but on contemplating the desired result as already accomplished. When you can clearly see the end in peace, your subconscious orchestrates the appropriate means, often in ways your rational mind could never have anticipated. Every effective choice is born from a clear, felt image of the outcome. It is not enough to think, I want to decide well, or I want what is right. You must form in your mind a concrete, simple, emotionally charged scene in which the matter is already resolved. This scene should contain a single element, your being in a state of peace after the outcome. You do not need to visualize the steps, imagine logistical details, or create a complex movie. A single essential frame showing the fully ripened fruit is sufficient. For example, you smiling as you check your email with the desired confirmation, you walking calmly after taking the correct step, you sharing with someone the joy of having chosen well. This is your mental movie of the fulfilled end. This principle was masterfully explained by Thomas Troward, whose understanding of the creative process remains one of the clearest ever written. Troward stated that thought does not directly create form, but establishes the invisible blueprint in which form manifests. The conscious mind proposes, the subconscious mind disposes, and the creative intelligence executes. But for the process to work, the idea must be complete, coherent, and sealed with feeling. A confused, hesitant, or emotionally flat image does not penetrate. That is why so many decisions remain unfulfilled. The soul has not seen the end clearly enough, nor felt it with the peace necessary for the subconscious to accept it as real. Here enters the principle of Psalm 37:5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. This commitment is not a verbal act or mere intention. It is the delivery of a complete image to the subconscious, accompanied by trust and gratitude. When you do this, the higher intelligence acts, not before, not through empty words, not by reciting affirmations without emotion. Only when you deliver the finished blueprint does construction begin. Now, for this image of the fulfilled end to have power, the inner field must first be purified. Many attempt to visualize the desired result while their soul remains full of guilt, fear, or resentment. It is like planting a seed in contaminated soil. No matter how good the seed, the ground sabotages it. Before fixing your mental image, take a few minutes to cleanse your inner self. Ask honestly, is there anything in me that opposes receiving this? Do I fear the result? Do I believe I do not deserve it? Do I resent someone involved in this situation? Do not shy away from these questions. They are the plow that prepares the soil. If you detect guilt, apply forgiveness. If fear arises, affirm the protective power of the infinite. If resentment appears, bless the person involved and let them go. Do this before visualizing, because the image of the end must be sown in clean ground. Emotional purity is not a moralistic requirement. It is a vibrational condition. The subconscious accepts only what resonates in harmony with your dominant state. If you visualize success but harbor resentment, you are not visualizing success but conflict, and the result will be confused. Once you have purified the ground, it is time to create the scene. The best time is at night before sleep, when the mind is most receptive and the subconscious remains active during sleep. Follow this procedure. Lie down calmly, turn off devices and close your eyes. Breathe deeply a few times, relaxing your body. Mentally reproduce the final scene. You in peace with the decision already made, the blessed outcome already manifested. Focus not on details, but on the sense of well-being that accompanies this resolution. Add emotion. Feel it as if it is happening. Smile if natural. Sigh in relief if spontaneous. This emotional charge anchors the image. Softly declare, "Thank you, for this decision is fulfilled in divine and perfect order." Fall asleep with that image. Do not abandon it for new doubts. Allow this seed to work in the nocturnal laboratory of your subconscious. Practice nightly. This method not only fixes the image in your deep mind, but also directs your perceptions during the day. You will begin to notice certain options fading and others becoming clearer. External situations start moving in sync with your mental scene. This is not suggestion, it is law. The subconscious begins to bring and organize the necessary conditions for what is seen and felt to manifest. And this requires no special gift. It is a natural function of the mind. You already do this unconsciously. Everything in your current life is the fruit of repeated, emotionally charged mental images. The difference now is that you consciously choose what to plant, purify the ground, and give thanks before seeing the fruit. This is the superior way to create a final outcome. Do not modify your image each night. Do not add unnecessary details. Do not worry about how it will occur. Remember, your task is to form and deliver the image. The task of the means belongs to the higher intelligence, and it does not need your anxiety, only your faith. Commit your way to the Lord and He will act. It does not say, you will act, but He will act. That is, the law will work in your favor once you have done your part. And your part is to see the end, feel it with peace, give thanks, and let go. Chapter 6. Sleeping while asking for guidance, the first sign upon waking. Night is not merely a biological rest. It is a sacred window into the deepest reservoir of your being. Sleeping within the framework of new thought is not simply a physiological act, but a daily opportunity to connect with the infinite wisdom that dwells within you. As your conscious mind withdraws and the interference of ordinary logic ceases, your subconscious, which never sleeps, continues to work, assimilating, organizing, and communicating. Ignoring this nocturnal laboratory is to waste one of the most powerful resources God has given you for receiving guidance. Job expresses this clearly in one of the most profound statements of the Old Testament. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, in slumberings on the bed, then He opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. Job 33:15. This is not a poetic metaphor, it is an operative law. Wisdom speaks while you sleep, but to hear its voice, which is gentle, precise, and non-coercive, you must learn to prepare your mind before bedtime and carefully record the signs upon waking. The general principle: the subconscious absorbs the last impressions before sleep with greatest intensity. The threshold between conscious mind and deep mind becomes more permeable at this time. Therefore, any image, word, or emotion you place in your mind just before sleep tends to imprint strongly. If the last impression is a sincere request for guidance, accompanied by a declaration of faith, that seed falls on the fertile ground of the sleeping consciousness and bears fruit in the form of signs upon awakening. The method? Before lying down, eliminate all distractions, lights, sounds, screens. Create a space of receptivity. Your bedroom should become a sanctuary of inner silence. Breathe deeply a few times to calm your mind. Serenely and with conviction declare the following formula. I let the wisdom within me choose now. Give me a clear sign upon waking. Do not repeat the request anxiously. Do not accompany it with doubt. Do not demand the manner in which the sign should come. Simply declare it. Feel that it has been heard and sleep in peace. It is crucial. Do not go to bed attempting to solve the dilemma. Do not enter sleep with your analytical mind running. Entrust the matter to the higher power within you as one would deposit a sealed envelope in a mailbox. Your subconscious will take this instruction and work on it during sleep, often by unexpected paths. Recognizing the answer upon waking, do not expect a literal voice or miraculous appearance. Wisdom rarely manifests spectacularly. It appears through subtle nuances. A word that resonates in your mind when you open your eyes, an image that lingers from a dream, an unexpected memory, an idea you had not considered before, an internal sense of clarity that cannot be put into words. This is called the first sign. To capture this sign, you need a simple but vital tool, a bedside notebook. Keep it by your bed with a pen. Upon waking, before checking your phone or speaking to anyone, write down everything you remember, a phrase, an image, a color, an emotion. Do not judge its value, just record. This is your raw material. Often the meaning becomes clear later, when you review these notes or compare them to the day's events. A practical example: a man consulted me because he had to decide between two job offers. Both were viable. He could not distinguish which was the correct direction. I suggested the nighttime method. Upon waking, he wrote down a single word that spontaneously came to mind: bridge. Initially, he did not understand. Later, reviewing the characteristics of both offers, he realized that one position literally served as a bridge between two teams, while the other was an isolated role. He understood that this was the sign. He chose the first and did not regret it. This is how wisdom operates when properly consulted. It does not impose, but it guides. It does not shout, but it points. It does not solve for you, but it provides the key to resolve with peace, and it works in the fertile ground of sleep, where the mind no longer interferes with judgments, fears, and conflicting desires. Sometimes the sign comes as a clear emotion upon waking, a sense of lightness, relief, as if a burden has been lifted. Other times, a feeling of unease indicates that the option considered is not in harmony with your inner peace. These impressions are not accidental, they are responses, but to hear them, you must become an attentive student of your dawn. Every morning can be an oracle if you know how to listen. A warning: do not become impatient if one night you do not receive a clear sign. Do not interrupt the process. Sometimes the subconscious needs more than one night to process what has been delivered. Consistency is key. A mind that consults each night, records faithfully, and gives thanks without demanding eventually establishes a permanent channel of communication with inner wisdom. This is not esotericism. It is a spiritual practice with a scientific basis. Advanced neuroscience has confirmed that the brain continues to process decisions during sleep, organizing information and solving complex problems without conscious participation. What is taught here simply shows how to collaborate with that process under the framework of a higher spiritual law, the law of the mind, directed by faith. Thus, when you have an important decision, do not make the night a mental battlefield. Make it an altar of consultation. Let your last thought before sleep be an act of surrender, not analysis. Simply say with simplicity and authority, I let the wisdom within me choose now. Give me a clear sign upon waking, then sleep. The infinite is already at work. Chapter 7. Daily Confirmations, Doors that Open. Every inspired decision carries with it its own signs of confirmation. These are not extraordinary phenomena or supernatural revelations, but the harmonious alignment of events, encounters, words, and circumstances that validate externally what has already been felt with peace internally. A mature choice is recognized not only by the inner serenity it produces, but by the doors that open naturally, without force, manipulation, or pressure, in sync with the intention that was sown. These doors are the way providence affirms what the soul has silently chosen. From the outset, a fundamental principle must be established. Not every coincidence is a confirmation, and not every ease comes from wisdom. The ego is skilled at forcing interpretations to match its desires. Therefore, anyone seeking confirmation must maintain inner vigilance and spiritual discernment. A true sign does not assert itself through spectacle or emotional desire. It harmonizes with inner peace, strengthens the chosen direction, and above all, produces edification for oneself and others. The Bible presents a classic example of this principle in the story of Eliezer, servant of Abraham, sent to find a wife for Isaac. In Genesis 24, Eliezer formulates a precise request. The right woman should not only offer water to him, but also to his camels. This is not a whim or arbitrary test. It is a reasonable sign based on character, hospitality, and generosity. When Rebekah fulfills this gesture exactly, Eliezer does not rush. He first observes in silence, then upon confirming her identity, He blesses the Lord, saying, "I in the way, the Lord has guided me." Genesis 24:27. Here lies the spiritual principle. True confirmation does not force the path, but appears as an open door along the way as one advances in obedience to inner peace. This is the key. Signs are not sought as a substitute for internal guidance, but as accompaniment. They are neither begged nor demanded. They are recognized. They are the external echo of a voice already heard within. They do not replace peace, they affirm it. How to recognize them? By continuing peace. A genuine sign does not agitate, create pressure, or demand abrupt decisions. It produces serenity that endures. If an opportunity arises but demands haste, sacrifices principles, or prompts action from fear, it is not a spiritual door. It is an ego trap or worldly distraction. Peace must remain present after the sign. By harmonious ease, this does not mean everything will be effortless, but conditions unfold naturally, without forcing. Key people appear, the right words are repeated, opportunities arrive without pushing. As Proverbs 16:9 says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." Human action is necessary. We think, choose, act. But the correct steps are guided, smoothed, and aligned with a higher order. By blessing others, the right decision does not only benefit the one who makes it, but extends its fruit outward. True confirmation builds, harmonizes relationships, and improves the environment. If a choice seems good but harms others, disrupts others' lives, or feeds the ego, it does not come from wisdom. Wisdom is inclusive. What blesses one never curses another. When a door opens through spiritual guidance, it does so that others may also walk in greater light. For this reason, we recommend applying what we call the rule of three: continued peace, harmonious ease, and blessing to others. If all three are present, you can proceed with confidence. But if any fail, if peace is interrupted, ease is apparent but tense, or others are harmed, then it is wise to return to stillness and wait for greater clarity. An illustrative example: a young woman had to choose between two vocational paths. She had prayed, visualized, and surrendered the decision. One morning, while walking without thinking about it, she heard a child say the exact phrase she had used in her visualization. She felt a shiver. Hours later, an old friend called, knowing nothing, and spoke precisely about an opportunity linked to that choice. The next day, a third confirmation arrived in class, the subject being exactly the vocation in question. None of these signs were forced or sought, yet all harmonized with growing peace, unexpected ease, and evident blessing. This is the signature of wisdom, a necessary guidance. Do not fall into superstition. Do not turn every number, word, or coincidence into a sign. The spiritual path does not depend on omens or emotional impulses. It depends on law, order, and quiet confirmation. The superstitious mind seeks comfort in the spectacular. The spiritual mind finds guidance in the silent. Remember always, true confirmation does not convince through fear, but confirms through peace. Therefore, if you receive a sign, do not rush. Observe it. Compare it with your inner peace. Ask yourself, does this sign reinforce the peace I already felt, or is it pushing me to decide from desire or fear? A genuine sign never contradicts the inner voice. It is its visible reflection. And if there is no immediate sign, do not grow impatient. Sometimes the absence of a sign is itself guidance, indicating that it is not yet time to decide, that inner maturation is still underway. Do not confuse silence with abandonment. Wisdom does not work under pressure, it works under law. In summary, doors open where there is peace, ease, and shared blessing. Walk through them with gratitude, not because of a magical revelation, but because providence has confirmed what your soul already knew in secret. Chapter 8. When fear arises, first peace, then decision. No mind can decide correctly while under the dominion of fear. Fear, far from being a simple passing emotion, is a vibrational state that blocks access to inner wisdom, distorts the perception of facts, and produces mental images that do not come from the spirit, but from the ego in its most primitive form, defense. When you decide from fear, you do not choose what is true, but what is least threatening. You follow urgency, not peace. You obey the impulse to protect, avoid, escape, or please, rather than your inner guide. And for this reason, any decision made in that state, no matter how justified it seems, lacks spiritual root and sooner or later loses its power. Paul expresses this forcefully in his letter to Timothy. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. 2. Timothy 1:7. This is not a moral exhortation, but an ontological description. Fear is not part of the soul's original nature. It does not come from the spirit. It is a distortion that arises when the mind disconnects from its source. Therefore, in every emotional storm, the first step is not to decide, act, or solve, but to pause and restore peace. The sequence is clear. First peace, then decision. This principle admits no exceptions. If you are disturbed, do not think. If you are anxious, do not choose. If you are dominated by haste, stop, because any decision made in that state will be partial, defensive, and unnecessarily costly. Conversely, if you know how to restore your center before deciding, you gain not only time, but clarity. When peace returns, truth emerges naturally, like sediment settling when water is left undisturbed. A spiritually trained soul should have what we call a spiritual emergency protocol, an immediate procedure to restore peace in situations of acute anxiety, paralyzing fear, or destructive urgency. This protocol has 3 fundamental steps: breathe, affirm, imagine, and Step 1, breathe. Conscious breathing interrupts the automatic fear circuit. When you are afraid, your body enters fight or flight mode. Your breathing becomes irregular, your heart races, and your mind fills with catastrophic thoughts. The first action is to breathe slowly and deeply for a few minutes. Inhale counting to 4, hold for a few seconds, exhale counting to 6, repeat 10 times. This sends a physiological signal of safety to the nervous system and allows the mind to begin clearing. Step 2, affirm. Once the body is calm, it is time to speak to your mind, not with logic or analysis, but with spiritual authority. The affirmation is not a psychological placebo, but a directive to the subconscious. Use this exact formula. God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Repeat it quietly or mentally with emphasis, as one would regain the helm of a ship. Speak not to convince yourself, but because it is true. Each repetition reminds your mind of who you are and where your guidance comes from. Step 3. Imagine. Create a brief image of the outcome in peace. Do not enter into details. Simply visualize the matter resolved and yourself experiencing relief, security, and guidance. This image acts as an anchor, sealing the restored emotional state and opening the field for inner wisdom to indicate the appropriate steps. A practical example. A man faced a complex legal situation. He had received an unexpected letter full of false accusations. He felt fear, anger, and urgency to respond aggressively. I asked him not to act until he applied the protocol. He breathed, affirmed, and imagined. Within 10 minutes, his body relaxed. His mind began to receive a new idea: consult a conciliatory lawyer rather than confront the accuser. That choice changed the course of the process. He acted not from fear, but from self-discipline. That opened the right door. Once peace is restored, then a decision can be made, but not before, because true decision does not arise from impulse, but from clarity. The serene soul sees what the fearful soul distorts. Therefore, before seeking solutions, restore your center. Before moving, stop. Before speaking, breathe. Before thinking, affirm. Before choosing, imagine peace. In this way, the governance of the Spirit is re-established within you. An additional resource is Psalm 56, 3. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. This affirmation contains a key principle. It does not deny fear, but neither does it submit to it. It acknowledges it while transcending it with trust. You can use it as an immediate formula. I am afraid, but I trust. I am anxious, but I rest in God. I cannot see, but He sees. This attitude does not repress the emotion, but places it in its proper place outside the throne of command. Fear is an intruder that usurps the throne. Your task is not to reason with it, debate it, or justify it. Your task is to evict it, and that is done by law, not argument. Breathe, affirm, imagine. This restores inner order, and once restored, the correct choice reveals itself naturally, like light entering when a window is opened. Chapter 9. Deciding between goods. choosing what best blesses all. When two good options present themselves, two lawful paths, two proposals that seem harmonious, the mind often encounters a subtler form of indecision. This is no longer about rejecting what harms or avoiding what is detrimental. The conflict arises because both possibilities appear correct, yet the soul senses that they cannot both be taken at the same time. This kind of dilemma, choosing between goods, is characteristic of the more mature stages of spiritual development and requires finer discrimination, not between light and darkness, but between lights of different intensity. Here enters the principle of higher discernment, choosing what blesses the most, what builds the most, what serves the most, what elevates consciousness and multiplies peace. Many souls freeze before these kinds of choices. They feel compelled to decide, but since there is no evident reason to discard either option, they begin to wear themselves down with mental comparisons, pros and cons, and rational calculations that rarely bring lasting clarity. Logic alone cannot dictate higher decisions. It can help clarify facts and evaluate consequences, but it cannot perceive the spiritual vibration of each path. It is this vibration, the quality of the fruit each choice promises, that must guide you. It is not about choosing the most comfortable, the most profitable, or the most externally approved, but what contributes most to the common good and the full development of the self. This guidance arises from an elevated consciousness, one that no longer asks only, "What benefits me?" but rather, "What serves the whole?" Which option allows me to be a purer channel of wisdom and love? Where can I serve best and grow in peace? This is the quintessential Mortian question, and when it is asked with deep sincerity, the answer comes not through reasoning, but through alignment. To ask this question effectively, one must examine the hidden motives that sometimes distort choices between goods. Often an option appears good, but is tainted by vanity. Choosing it will make me look better to others. Another seems safe, but it is dictated by fear. Choosing it avoids losing what I already have. In both cases, though the option may be valid, the motive is distorted, and the subconscious responds more to the motive than to the form. If you decide from fear of loss, you will attract more fear, even if the choice seems correct. If you choose from vanity, you will gather unease, because external image does not satisfy the soul. Therefore, before deciding, ask yourself without defense, what am I trying to protect? What am I trying to impress? What do I fear letting go of? Do not fear answering honestly. Clarity only arises when light is shone on what is hidden. Paul provides an impeccable guide for this discernment. In Philippians 4:8, he writes, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things." This is not merely an ethical recommendation, it is an operative description of the higher mind. If you are between two goods, observe which contains more truth, justice, kindness, and virtue. This is not about measuring moral merit, but about tuning into the highest frequency, because good is not uniform. It has degrees, and the elevated mind always chooses the higher degree. The rule summarizing this choice is what Jesus taught in simple, eternal words. The golden rule: do to others what you would have them do to you. Matthew 7:12. Apply it to your decision. Ask yourself, which of these options best represents what I would want another to do if they were in my place? What choice would I hope a loving, wise person would make if they knew everything I know? These questions purify egocentric desires and activate the field of compassion, the natural atmosphere of higher decisions. An illustrative case: a woman had to choose between accepting an academic opportunity abroad or staying to oversee a community project she had initiated. Both were good. The first offered prestige and intellectual growth, the second direct service and continuity. She consulted in silence, visualized both options, asked for a sign, yet the peace she felt with the second option was deeper and more stable, though less dazzling. Applying the Mortian question, where can I serve best and grow most in peace, the answer was clear. She chose to stay, and not only did her project thrive, but shortly thereafter she received an even better offer that included academic training without abandoning her service. This is how the law acts when one chooses from the greatest peace rather than momentary shine. To facilitate this discernment, we recommend a simple conscience examination exercise oriented towards service and expansion, to be done in silence for 5 minutes. Close your eyes, breathe gently, and internally ask these 3 questions. Which of these options allows me to be most useful to others? Which expands me in love, not merely in power? Which leaves me with enduring peace when I imagine having taken the step? If the answer is repeated with inner clarity in all 3, there lies your direction. Do not seek perfect logic. Seek integral alignment. And remember, when you choose from the greatest blessing, you yourself are also blessed, because the law returns multiplied everything given with joy and chosen with truth. Chapter 10. Repairing past decisions without remorse. The heaviest burden the human soul carries is not the error itself, but the unresolved guilt over what might have been. A mind trapped in lamenting the past, repeating, "I should have done this. I failed to see, I chose wrong," not only wastes its energy in sterile review, but also blocks the free exercise of creative power in the present. Guilt is a form of attachment disguised as humility, and continuous remorse is a punishment imposed by no one but your lower self. The truth is that the law of the mind recognizes neither past nor future as real limits. The subconscious is always available to receive new instructions, reinterpret what has happened, and transform the burden into a blessing. Paul expressed this with clarity, requiring no gloss, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God. Romans 8:28. This does not say that all things are good, but that all help bring about good if offered in faith. This includes mistaken decisions, hasty choices, twisted paths. When offered to the Spirit without self-accusation, all of this can be used as raw material for higher understanding. Spiritual law does not condemn. It corrects, redeems, transforms. But for this to occur, you must release internal condemnation. The first step is to understand this. You could not have chosen better at that moment, given the level of consciousness you had. Repeat this slowly and let it sink in. You could not have chosen better because you did not know more, did not see more, did not understand more. This does not justify, but it explains, and what is understood is released. Instead of eternally asking, "Why did I do that?" ask, "For what purpose did this happen?" The answer will come in the form of acquired wisdom, not perpetual punishment. A powerful example is found in the story of Joseph, sold by his brothers, and later raised to authority in Egypt. Upon reuniting with them, he says one of the most spiritually charged phrases in the Old Testament: "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Genesis 50:20. Here lies the key. What resulted from flawed human intention was absorbed by divine intelligence and redirected for good. If this is true at a collective level, it is even more so personally. Your past decisions, even the most painful, can be reconfigured as blessings if you release them without resistance or reproach. How is this done? Through a precise spiritual practice called the technique of redeciding in the imagination. The procedure is as follows. Choose a past decision that still weighs on you, a poorly taken choice, a word spoken without wisdom, an action that closed paths or hurt others. Enter a state of quiet. Close your eyes, breathe deeply. Visualize the moment you made that decision, not to judge but to observe neutrally. Now, from your current consciousness, imagine returning to that moment, but this time choosing from peace with the wisdom you have today. Feel how this imagined decision corrects the emotional burden. Notice how you feel afterward. What would have happened if you had chosen with greater light? You do this not to change factual history, but to reprogram the emotional charge trapped there. This is not denial of facts, it is transmutation of their weight. The subconscious does not distinguish between past and present. It responds to dominant images. If you now fix a corrected image, you will feel relief. Relief is a sign of liberation. Accompany this practice with a closing affirmation, spoken softly or written in your spiritual journal. What was now serves my good. I release it, I bless it, I free it. This formula is mental alchemy. It does not change what happened, but it changes what it means to you. And when meaning changes, the result changes. An additional tool is the brief ritual of inner forgiveness. to be used whenever a past error resurfaces to accuse you. The ritual has 3 steps. Bless all the people involved in that decision. Ask that they receive light, peace, and good. Release all guilt, judgment, and need for punishment. Free yourself from the weight you created. Give thanks. Thank for the new understanding that arises from this experience. Transform it into a seed of wisdom. If repeated sincerely, this ritual unknots the emotional block that prevents progress. The soul advances not through forgetfulness, but through understanding. When you understand that all has cooperated, even if you did not see it before, you can truly say nothing was in vain. And it is true, because nothing is lost in the economy of the spirit. Every corrected error becomes light for others. Every redeemed misstep allows you to guide those who follow. Every detour, when surrendered, can become a testimony of guidance. Do not lament what you did when you knew no better. Be grateful that today you know more, and from that knowledge, decide anew within. Remember, the past holds no power unless you reactivate it with guilt. Release it, bless it, rewrite it in your consciousness. Say now, what was now serves my good. And you will see your present cleared, your future brightened, and the wisdom within you take the helm once again. Chapter 11. Acting without looking back. Every true decision requires a firm step, but deciding in the mind alone is not enough. The law of the subconscious also requires action, movement, a commitment expressed in deeds. Direction that is not translated into action weakens. Clarity that is not confirmed by deeds fades, because what is not used is lost, and what is not embodied remains on the plane of idealism. Therefore, once you have received inner guidance, confirmed peace, visualized the outcome, and recorded the sign, it is time to act without looking back. Jesus expressed this with cutting clarity. No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Luke 9:62. This is not a moral threat, but a psychological statement. A divided soul cannot manifest in order. When you begin to move in an inspired direction and then question it again, mental energy disperses and the act weakens. The energy that should propel you forward is spent reviewing, comparing, doubting, and mental law does not respond to doubt. It responds to certainty. Therefore, once you have sealed your choice with peace, you must silence the question. And this is the most paralyzing thought of all. What if I am wrong? What if this is not the right path? What if the other option was better? All these questions arise from a false assumption that there is a perfect decision in human terms, free of risk, guaranteed. That does not exist. What does exist is inner guidance confirmed by peace, by signs, and by growth. If that is present, you need no external guarantees. Faith does not walk by calculation, it walks by trust. The soul that has received guidance but does not act is like a ship that has cast off its moorings but has not started the engine. It has freedom but does not move. Here another gospel principle comes into play. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Matthew 6:22. The healthy eye is the focused mind, unified will, clear direction. It is the opposite of a divided mind. When you act with the single eye, you do not need to reconfirm each step or fear that something is missing. Your inner light guides your entire being, and that simple focus is the foundation of all stable manifestation. To help sustain this firmness, we propose a plan of 3 immediate actions. This plan serves to translate the inner decision into external movement, thus consolidating the impression in the subconscious. Symbolic, a gesture that confirms your choice. It could be writing a letter, buying a ticket, making a call, or simply organizing a space related to the decision. Its scale does not matter, only its meaning. Practical, a concrete step that initiates the process. This could be a procedure, a study, a request, a meeting, something measurable, visible, that activates the flow of events. Sacred, an inner consecration. It could be a prayer, a repeated affirmation, or a daily visualization. This step aligns your spiritual energy with action. Do not postpone these 3 actions. Take them within the first 48 hours after confirming your direction, because a mind that delays weakens its decision. In contrast, a mind that acts reinforces its conviction, and that conviction sustains the process even when no visible results are yet apparent. At this point, it is crucial to remember that spiritual choice does not guarantee a path without obstacles. Sometimes, after deciding with clarity, the environment seems to resist. But this does not mean you have erred. It means that old structures are beginning to crumble to make room for the new. Your task is not to retreat, but to move forward with greater firmness. The law responds to persistence, not doubt. And those who sow in faith reap in manifestation. Repeat each morning the sealing affirmation. My decision is sealed in peace. I walk in firmness and grace. This phrase should become the mental atmosphere of your day. Let every step be supported by that conviction, every thought aligned with that direction, every encounter confirm what has already been chosen. A concrete example, a businessman had to decide between renewing his current partnership or opening a new line of business independently. The new option offered peace, growth, and expansion. The old offered stability and familiarity. After praying, visualizing, and consulting in silence, he received inner and outer confirmation. But when he took the first step toward independence, his environment hesitated. Partners questioned him. Technical obstacles arose. He doubted. He was about to turn back. I reminded him of the principle: once you have confirmed, do not revisit what the soul has already answered. He acted. He persevered. In less than 3 months, his new line surpassed the old in results, not by luck, but by spiritual guidance obeyed with firmness. Therefore, do not look back. Do not revive what has been discarded. Do not reprocess the choice. Act, and in acting, you will see how invisible forces, order, peace, provision, and grace align to sustain you. When you decide with the Spirit, you do not walk alone. You walk with the support of a law that never fails. Chapter 12. The complete formula applied to health, finances, and relationships. The ultimate purpose of this method is not to create an abstract spiritual system, but to establish an operational compass that works every day in the decisions that truly affect our lives. Health, money, and relationships are not minor matters. They are the 3 axes where consciousness expresses its degree of order, its level of faith, and its capacity to align with the good. Every choice in these areas has profound consequences, not only practical but vibrational. That is why applying the formula with spiritual rigor is essential. Let us recall the complete sequence. Declare surrender. I let the wisdom within me choose now. Enter stillness. Consult in silence. Quiet the mind. Formulate the desire in terms of the fulfilled end, not the means. Visualize the final scene with a sense of peace and relief. Step 4 is implied in the sequence of Chapter 5, cultivating emotional resonance with the scene. Sleep. Asking for guidance. Give me a clear sign upon waking. Observe confirmations during the day. Continued peace, ease, blessing to others. Act firmly without looking back. Confirm the decision with a triple action: symbolic, practical, and sacred. Now let's see how this formula applies to each of the 3 domains. Health. The body as a temple of decisions. Decisions regarding the body should not be made solely from fear of symptoms or urgency to eliminate discomfort. The body is the board on which deep ideas are imprinted. Symptoms are signals, not punishments. Healing begins when we choose to restore inner order in harmony with prudent external actions. Before opting for treatment, a specialist or a procedure say internally, I let the wisdom within me choose now. Guide me to the perfect solution that respects my body, my peace, and my path of growth. Then enter silence and visualize not the means, medicine, therapy, but the final outcome, you in full vitality, grateful, breathing with relief, walking with energy, affirming, He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1. Sleeping with this image and this request allows guidance to emerge upon waking, a word, a recommendation, a firm intuition. Do not chase spectacular solutions. Wait for the sign that aligns with peace. Choose what aligns with your integrity, not what produces more fear. And when you act, do not look back. Bless every step. Cooperate with your body. Give thanks for its response and repeat, My body responds to the peace of my soul. The wisdom within me guides me to complete recovery. Finances deciding without greed or fear. Financial decisions reveal the inner relationship with provision. A greedy soul does not trust in supply. A fearful one sabotages it. Therefore, choosing economic opportunities from the Spirit means discerning not only what generates income, but what increases peace, expands service, and blesses others. Before investing, buying, selling, changing jobs, or starting a venture, say with inner authority, I let the wisdom within me choose now. Guide me to the opportunity that allows me to grow, share, and prosper in peace. Then do not focus on numbers, salary, or risk, but on the final scene. You in financial calm, contributing to the common good, affirming with serenity, the blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22. Guidance may come upon waking or during the day, a call, a proposal, an unexpected thought. Remember the rule of three: sustained peace, ease of flow, benefit to others. If something produces anxiety or exclusivity, it is not the path. If it produces expansion, order, and justice, then proceed without looking back. Activate the decision with three actions: reserve, contact, affirmation, and declare, I prosper in all things because the wisdom within me chooses the perfect path. Everything I give returns to me multiplied. Relationships choosing from dignity and mutual good. Decisions in relationships are delicate, involving bonds, emotions, history, yet they must be guided by peace, dignity, and mutual benefit. Love is not clinging nor tolerating what is destructive. Love is choosing from truth. The key question is not, is this relationship convenient for me, but does this relationship reflect my highest state of consciousness? Before formalizing, withdrawing, reconciling, or taking distance, pause. Say, I let the wisdom within me choose now. If this relationship serves the expansion of true love, may it be strengthened. If not, may it dissolve in peace and freedom for both. Then enter silence and visualize only the final scene in peace, you in a dignified, harmonious, free relationship, or you in serene solitude, without resentment or anxiety, affirming, love is patient, love is kind, it bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Observe the sign, a conversation, an attitude, a clear sensation. Do not decide from emotional reaction. Decide in alignment with your inner value. And when you choose, bless, do not condemn. What cannot stand in dignity cannot stand in love. And what is decided from true love prospers. Activate with three gestures: a sincere dialogue, an act of respect, an affirmation. Repeat, I walk in relationships that elevate my consciousness. The wisdom within me dissolves all bonds that no longer serve and strengthens all connections that build. These three areas, though distinct, are governed by the same principle. Inner wisdom never fails if consulted with surrender, followed with peace, and confirmed by firm action. The formula is not superstition or a mechanical ritual. It is a way of life, a mode of existing aligned with the source, choosing each day from the spiritual center and allowing that choice to guide everything else. You are not alone. Within you is a greater mind, an eternal intelligence, a wisdom that does not err. When you surrender your decisions to that inner power, you can say with certainty, all things work together for my good. Everything is guided. Everything responds to perfect order. Choose thus, decide thus, act thus, and you will see your entire life become a sequence of doors opening, paths illuminating, and steps taken with grace because your direction has already been given from above.